Stoveleg Media, igniting conversation.
This is True Crime Cast. Jamie here with John. What's up, buddy?
Dude, not a whole lot, which is good. I'll take that. How are you doing?
I got a whole lot, but it's all right. We're good.
Sorry.
We got a good case today. We have had a really good interview with Beth Braden that we released yesterday, and it kind of went off the rails, but I liked it.
We had every intentions of only talking about a case from Myrtle Beach. That is Micah. You guys are familiar with that case. Micah Miller.
Or Francis, depending on who you're talking to.
But we instead spoke about everything from Appalachian wakes to snake handling to everything in between.
Yeah.
So we thought, this is still semi-crime. So we did release it on True Crime Cast, but it is definitely the kind of content you would expect to hear on Bless Their Hearts. So we posted it over there as well.
She's great, and it was a lot of fun. So I hope you check that out. Also want to give a big thanks to some people who wrote 5-star reviews. This comes from Mildred's Mary. It says classy. I don't know if we've ever been called classy before. Well done and likable hosts as well. This is Margot91. The hosts do a really good job telling the story, but still be respectful toward the victims. Also, as social workers have to support other social workers.
Hey-o. And who is that?
That is Margot91.
Love you, Margot. Hang in there. Days are short. Wait, days are long.
Years are short. Yeah.
Can we go back up to the person who called us classy?
Yeah.
And maybe we need to redirect them to the show they were trying to post for, because that is not an adjective that is used ever to describe me nor Jamie.
No, I haven't heard that one.
God bless you. That's awesome.
I will gladly take that to Mildred's Mary.
Mildred, you need to come talk to my wife if you think I'm classy, because she would have a bunch of stories to declare otherwise. Don't forget, you can check us out over on Patreon. If you really enjoy this content, we do release a bonus episode each and every month that is only available to our Patreon members. www.patreon.com, Patreon.com.
And you get early ad-free everything else. Everything comes out early and ad-free, so that could be all yours.
Jamie, we're going to go back to 2001 today, and that was, if I've ever been in my prime, that was it. I was like 17 years old. I was graduating high school. You were already a freshman in college, if I'm not mistaken.
I was.
So that's the era that we're going to. So with that being said, why don't you get the ball rolling?
Yeah, we're going to take this to Marysville, Ohio, where there was a Honda automotive plant that was prepping for a shutdown week. Now, this is a week where they were going to shut down. Employees were going to have it off to celebrate the 4th of July. They were going to get some stuff ready and change some processes. Everybody was ready for their vacation and their break, including 29-year-old Patti Adkins, who we will now refer to as Patti. She was a single mom who had worked at the Honda facility for a full decade. She had worked her way up, and she was a supervisor at the plant. She loved her job, but she was really excited about this break and this upcoming vacation she was going to spend with her boyfriend.
So this boyfriend has not been named publicly, even after all these years. But this boyfriend worked at the Honda plant with Patti. They were on different lines, but Patti would stop by, talk to her boyfriend, and she reportedly really, really liked this guy. But there was a problem, and it was a big problem. The boyfriend was married to someone else and had a family of his own. But the two, regardless of that problem, had dated off and on for years. And Patti told her family and friends that he was planning to leave his wife and to forever be with her. But after a couple of years, even your family would have to start to wonder, right?
I would think so.
Patti and this boyfriend had planned on using the shutdown week to take a little trip up to Canada. So in preparing to do so, she would put her dog and cats in a kennel. She asked her sister to watch her 7-year-old daughter while she was gone, and then she would be back in a week.
Yeah, Patti told her sister, whose name's Marcia, that they were going to go to a cabin in a remote area without cell phone service. Remember, this is 2001, so correct me if I'm wrong, John, but back then there were fewer places with service than without. Phones weren't as common.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even have one as a 17-year-old then. They weren't available for what I needed. And then, yeah, you barely had service. So unless you lived in like a very populated area, they were essentially useless.
Right. So she was going to be out of touch for a while, which again was pretty common. You weren't tethered like you are now. The plan was for Patti and her boyfriend, again, still unnamed, to leave together in his pickup truck after work on Friday, June 29th of 2001. The boyfriend told Patti not to pack anything. He told her when they got to Canada, he would buy her all new stuff, which I just find is an incredibly awkward request. Who would tell you not to pack your own stuff?
Yeah, that seems odd to me. I mean, they might have a little money, but I can't imagine being rich enough to be like, I'm not packing anything. I'll buy everything I need when I get there. Like, that just seems ridiculous.
And there's comfort in having your stuff. Like, it just, I see no purpose unless they say they didn't have room, but then
even if you don't pack clothing, like, you're going to need toiletries. Like, why buy everything? It doesn't make sense to me.
It certainly does not. So on that Friday, Patti had a female coworker drive her to work so she wouldn't have to leave her car at the factory. She told her friend that her boyfriend had to give another male coworker a ride home that night. So she had to hide under a tarp in the bed of her boyfriend's truck until he dropped the other man off. Again, with the odd requests.
I mean, they've been dating for years. Do people really not know at this point? Like,
what are they hiding from? I mean,
that's if I ever told my wife when we were dating that you're going to need to hide in the back of my truck before we go on this date, she's not going to be my girlfriend anymore.
Well, I mean, he was married and she knew that. So they were trying to keep it from his wife, I guess, but everybody had to know. I think they'd have to know.
Just after midnight, when her shift was over, Patti clocked out of her work and then went to the parking lot. On her timestamp, Jamie, she had clocked out 19 seconds after midnight.
Okay.
So you can tell, like, she was eager to get out of there, which after midnight, I'm eager to get out of there anyway. So there were witnesses who saw her leaving the plant, and she was wearing her white Honda of America uniform. Even though her boyfriend had told her not to bring anything, she did bring a small teal-colored duffel bag. And she had told her friend that she wanted to pack something that she had gotten from Victoria's Secret in his favorite color. So she packed a small duffel bag with that and maybe a few other things in it. The bag and Patti were never to be seen again. Patti was supposed to pick up her daughter from her sister's house on Sunday, July 8th, 2001. And when she didn't show back up, her sister Marcia went to her sister's house and found Patti's car in the garage. She went inside and didn't find anything suspicious. All of Patti's belongings were still in place. Her wallet, all of her keys and everything were inside of the house, but there was no sign of Patti. So 7 p.m. rolls around that night. Marcia is officially concerned, and she calls the police to file a missing persons report with the Marysville Police Department.
Yeah, it's, I mean, she did go to work and leave her car at home on purpose. So there's some degree of this that is expected. Obviously, her not coming back is not expected, but she had that eerie feeling. And I'm sure her daughter, who, I mean, we didn't get to hear from her about her experience, but her mom not coming home had to be gut wrenching.
Well, and nowadays we have our iPhones or whatever, and we have the ability to use like the Find My Friends, and we could, if this was back then, we didn't have those things. It's almost expected, like, okay, they went up to the middle of nowhere, maybe car troubles, but they're still without cell phone service. She'll show back up.
Yep.
But, so the level of alarm back then would be much lower than today, because today we would be able to pull up and see her last known location, when that was, all that stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely different. And the way to find somebody then was to call and say, hey, has anybody come to the hospital named Patricia Adkins, or have there been any calls to AAA to come and help with their car or whatever? But they called around there, and then they started reaching out to the family of Patti's boyfriend.
Marcia was pretty smart. This boyfriend owned a side business. He owned a mechanic shop. So she actually called later that evening after 7 o'clock to say, hey, I had some business dealings with your husband and I need to know if he's around so I can speak to him about it, blah, 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 blah. The wife says, no, he's not here right now, but he'll be home in an hour or two. You can call back or I can leave a message.
Which obviously indicates that she knew exactly where he was and had seen him recently.
Right.
So if he's been seen and Patti hasn't, huge red flag. She finally called the wife back and told her everything. She revealed the affair with Patti, their planned trip, and everything surrounding that. Of course, the wife didn't want to believe what she was hearing, so she handed the phone to her husband and walked away. And the boyfriend denied this relationship. He said he didn't even know Patti, except from seeing her at work. 2 days later, the police wanted to talk to him, and the boyfriend continued to deny any kind of relationship. He said he didn't know her, he didn't date her, he had no plans to go away with Patti, and they certainly had never had an affair. The boyfriend and another male coworker said that they left the plant together on June 29th, drove 30 miles toward Canton, stopped at a Burger King and waited 45 minutes in the drive-thru, got their food, and went home. I mean, you can do better than that, Burger King, just on a side note.
Well, I mean, let's talk about the Burger King, because first off, I'm never going to wait in line for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And our writer, Mackenzie, made a note that said I would never wait that long in a drive-thru. I think if they would have said we went and we waited at Burger King for 5 minutes, okay, you move on from there. It's not even a point that you would consider. But when you say 45 minutes, that's an anomaly. Police went to this Burger King, and within that 1 hour span of time, they only served 18 people, and there was no way anybody waited for 40 minutes to get their food.
Yeah.
So right off the bat, that doesn't check out.
Yeah, it doesn't add up because, of course, if it is a quicker stop, then it gives less time that's unaccounted for, obviously, for foul play. But the male coworker backed him up. And when we get back from the break, we'll talk about his wife's response to the story and how they tried to find out where Patti was.
So Patty's boyfriend's wife did indeed back up his story, and she said that her husband arrived at home at his usual time of 2:30 a.m. The older I get, I can't imagine working third shift.
That shift work, man. Yeah,
That's the first time I wake up to go use the bathroom.
It's a different lifestyle.
And I want to go back, Jamie, to what you were talking about before we went to break. This boyfriend throws in a male coworker, and when he does that, I mean, does your brain just automatically go to, you mean accomplice?
Right. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Especially if he's backing up his story and the story doesn't add up. I think you have to assume that he at least knew what was happening if he was not a part of it.
So going back to this boyfriend's wife, like I said, she backs up his story. He got home at 2:30 in the morning, and she told police that she did not know anything about an affair. And she said that there's no way her husband could have been involved in an affair. Jamie, am I wrong, dude? Like, I hate to speak in hypotheticals, but if your wife was having an affair for over 2 years, you're really not going to suspect, like, how in the world could it be pulled off for that long?
I think about that sometimes, just how common it is. And I mean, we've seen it happen with people in our lives, and people didn't know about it. But I think in a lot of those cases, there is at least a little bit of, so where were you during this time? And maybe he just had her convinced. He was doing a lot of fishing or something.
Well, I mean, he was busy. He did work this night job. He did own half of a mechanic's business. So he's going to be spending a lot of time away from home. And back then, like I've said before, you didn't have cell phones tethered to you. So you really didn't have to pay attention to, let me turn off my location so that no one can see where I'm at.
But you're right. It is hard to believe that she had no suspicion at all.
She said that between his job at the plant and their side business and taking care of the children, there's no way that he could have time for an affair. She also said that he spent the whole shutdown week with her and her children. So if that's true, then where's Patti been all this time?
Right.
And law enforcement would check every part of their story, and they found out that, in fact, he did leave the factory around midnight, took someone home, and then was home by 2:30 a.m. They also discovered that the boyfriend's home was only 35 minutes from the factory, and the Burger King manager said that they were never busy in the early hours of that time of day, and in no way would he have had to wait 45 minutes at the drive-thru to get their food.
Yeah, so that's starting to throw his story into question. And again, this is just creating, in my mind, time that's not accounted for in a time when we have no idea where Patti was. If he got home that night, I mean, he didn't even leave for this trip. He was with his family the entire time. The police asked the coworker about the alleged affair, and they claimed that Patti and the boyfriend were having an emotional affair, that they did know each other and were getting closer and closer. They talked to each other a lot and really spent a lot of time together at work and some after. The coworkers said that the connection they had wasn't just physical. Once it turned physical, that they seemed to really be in love with each other based on the interactions that people saw when they were together. Again, he's asking her to hide under the tarp so people don't know. Everybody they worked with knew something was going on. It was obvious.
During their investigation, the authorities searched Patti's home, and they didn't really find anything suspicious. And they concluded that if someone had abducted her, then it certainly didn't happen at her home. Authorities also got permission from the boyfriend to search his home, and they did come across some items of interest. First, there was a phone and a t-shirt that were gifts from Patti. So the t-shirt was from the Hard Rock Cafe. This was one of, Marcia actually remembered her sister buying this shirt for him on their trip to Florida a few months earlier. And they found a letter written by Patti to the boyfriend about the relationship and how much she wanted to be with him. There was also a birthday card the boyfriend claimed was from all of his colleagues at Honda, but it was only signed by Patti. So these gifts confirmed that this relationship was indeed very real. He had evidence all over the place that they were involved in some kind of a relationship.
But to be clear, all that they found out at this point was they confirmed the relationship, not that he had anything to do with their disappearance. But since he had been denying the relationship, he's continuing to look more and more suspicious.
And I get, if this guy's being questioned in front of his wife, he doesn't want his wife to hear him say all this. I get it. Even if she has suspicions, you don't want to, it's uncomfortable to talk about, right? But my God, man, this is a bad look. And if you didn't do anything to harm Patti, you've got to come out and be completely open and honest about everything. And when he's not doing that, that's damning in my mind.
I was watching a Scott Peterson documentary earlier this week of one of the 7,000 that have been made. And that's what I kept thinking about. Like, he's getting progress in his appeals for some reason. And with every interview I watch, I'm like, he presented himself as such a bad husband and such a liar. I don't know how you believe anything he says. And I think we're starting to get there with Patti's boyfriend. They went on to search his truck, and none of Patti's DNA was immediately found in the bed of the truck. In the garage, though, they found a new truck bed cover. He said he bought this cover on June 26th to put it in the truck on June 29th, and he removed it on July 8th. So truck bed cover, usually something you put in there just to protect the bed of your truck from getting all scratched up. And
well, this is the kind of like a camper type cover, not a bed liner,
right,
so to speak, but okay. This was basically so that parents back then could drive their children around in the back of the truck without getting them soaking wet.
Yeah. So
no, I'm kidding.
Been there. No, that's not far off from the truth, I wouldn't think. So they did find in the garage this cover. Police took the cover for analysis, and they found cat hairs and one single droplet of blood. Patty's veterinarian determined that the cat hair did come from Patty's cats. I guess in my old age, I'm just skeptical about everything. You and I argue about polygraphs all the time. I'm starting to doubt the way we look at hair evidence. It wasn't DNA that we were looking for in those cat hairs, but I mean, a lot of times you can just tell by matching color, like the cats that this hair came from didn't live here, but they did match Patty. So I'll give them that. The spot of blood, immediately when you say there's blood, you think, oh, we can test for DNA. But it was such a small drop that we couldn't do that back then.
Yeah, in fact, the evidence department, or whatever you call that, basically said, we can test this, but if it is inconclusive, it will ruin the only drop of blood that you have. So they advised, let's hold off on testing this until technology advances in a way that you don't lose all your physical blood evidence that you have. So we have the blood. It could be his, it could be hers, it could be a deer's. I mean, we really don't know. Another alarming fact discovered during the investigation is that Patti had given this boyfriend roughly $90,000 in the months leading up to her disappearance. That is a lot of money. I mean, Jamie, we don't have to talk about where we are in life, but I don't have close to $90,000 I can get my hands on right now, short of selling my house.
And surely not have given away to somebody. And yes, they did seem to be deeply in love. Everybody said they had this connection, but why would you just give this amount of money away? You got a kid to take care of, and not victim blaming. I mean, this is just a question of how was he getting it from her, and what is he wanting it for? Is he just saying he's earning this at his new business? It just doesn't add up. And again, it's a horrible look for boyfriend.
Yeah. Well, he told her that he wanted the money to buy out the portion of the side business that he had so that when he divorced his wife, she couldn't keep it. Now, in my mind, I don't understand that logic. I mean, if you buy out the part of the business, your current wife's still going to be entitled to half of that.
Yeah, unless we're prenupping it.
Right, unless she's buying the business for herself and not for him, but that doesn't seem to be what he's saying at all.
Right.
Anyway, the boyfriend had allegedly told Patti that the two of them couldn't be together until he had the money. So he's manipulating her. Patti wanted to move the relationship along, so she did everything she could. She cashed in stocks. She took out a second mortgage on her house. She withdrew $30,000 that she had invested in her 401k. So she didn't really have the liquid assets. She had to go through some pretty great lengths to get this and also do it in such a way that, like, this is not liquid cash. Like, you're going to have to pay this back in a lot of these with interest in some cases. So.
And you're losing those investments. Like, this is a horrific long-term financial situation.
Her family knew about this and they expressed to her that this was not okay. But Patti felt reassured and reassured them that her boyfriend was going to pay her back. Shortly before she went missing, Patti told her boyfriend that she needed to start paying the money back soon. While searching Patti's home, police found money bands. This was like the bands that you would put around stacks of bills. So it was clear that she had withdrew it from her bank and stored it in her home and only gave her boyfriend cash. The boyfriend took a polygraph test and he failed it. Soon after this, he quit his job at the Honda plant and never went back to work there.
And I mean, we've covered cases where people have been wrongfully accused, wrongfully convicted. So we always say you're innocent until proven guilty. So I get that. I don't know what he was trying to do here, but he also, if you're accused of murder, it has a huge impact on your life, whether you did it or not, whether you get convicted or not. And I think we're starting to see that with him. So him having to leave his job, I don't think is a super surprising development in this case. To this day, nobody Not her friends, family members, not even Patty's daughter have heard from her. All of her personal and financial records have shown no activity since the day she disappeared. So there's no sign of her leaving town, so to speak, as they say that a lot of people who go missing, well, they just fled. That does not seem to be the case here. Patty's sister, Marcia, told NBC, "I don't have hope that my sister's alive. I knew when she didn't return that she was not alive, but I have hope that justice will happen, that somebody will be held accountable for her death." And she was declared legally dead in 2006. And the police obviously suspect foul play here. They say that evidence which proves this case beyond a reasonable doubt is what's required before they make an arrest. No arrests have been made, but her then boyfriend is still considered the primary suspect and is still unnamed in any documents you find. I'm sure that you could probably find it in a Reddit thread somewhere, but since it's not public, we're not going to name it here. The officer on the case said, "We follow up on every lead and every person that's mentioned to us as much as we can, but he is still the primary suspect."
I mean, to this point, have you heard anything that would allow you as a district attorney to file charges against him?
I don't know. I mean, it depends on where you are, right? Like you can file charges and do an investigation and choose not to indict or choose not to go to trial and drop the charges. I would think that an arrest would give you an opportunity to dig in some areas that you couldn't otherwise dig in. But we also see police departments get themselves in a lot of trouble doing this. It's easier to get tunnel vision when somebody's in handcuffs. So I have no reason to believe that, or I have no other leads or suspects, but there's no physical evidence of her actually getting in his truck that night and leaving with him. Nobody saw it happen. We know that she got to work with a friend. You know, there's just no physical evidence that he did that unless we can tap into that blood drop that couldn't be tested back then.
I mean, police have tried to follow up on leads. They've tried to rule out this man as a suspect. They took cadaver dogs to some property that he owned, and the dogs actually hit on a pile of concrete that was newly poured around this property that he owned. But when they excavated it, there was no Patti. There was nothing. So people have since speculated, well, did he and this accomplice bury her there, get paranoid and then dig her up, move her again? I mean, I don't know. This is all speculation. And at the end of the day, there's not physical hardcore evidence. Today, Patti would be 52 years old. 15 years after she disappeared, her daughter, McKaylee, spoke publicly about life without her mother. She said, quote, "It's been a challenging time growing up, going through 15 Mother's Days without a mom, 15 birthdays without a mom," end quote. McKaylee does not remember much about when her mother disappeared. She says that she's blocked all that out to help cope with all the sadness that she feels. During the time of the interview, McKaylee was actually going to graduate school at Kent State, and she said that she thinks my mom would be proud. And I think she would. I think Patti was a hardworking woman, and I think her daughters followed suit.
Completely agree. And you know, obviously this is traumatic and a huge impact on McKaylee's life, but like others we see, she's trying to turn this into a positive motivator and trying to make her mom proud. Patti Adkins is described at the time, again, this was 23 years ago, as being 5'8" and 120 pounds at the time of her disappearance. She had her ears pierced. She had a belly button piercing. She had a tattoo of flowers that were bluish green on her lower back. If you have any information about her whereabouts or have heard anything about something that was done to her during this disappearance, please call Lieutenant Jeff Stiers at 937-645-4126. Anonymous information can be left via voicemail if you want to call the Union County Sheriff's Crime Tip Hotline at 937-624-7653. And we'll put both of those numbers in the show notes as well, in case somebody has something to share. Cause I think either that or advancement in technology is going to be required to solve this, John. Do you see any other way to get the answer?
No, I mean, we've got to be so close, right, to some kind of technology that can test this without completely ruining it. But man, this could be critical. I mean, if that's her blood that was found in the back of his truck, I mean, that would give authorities the legal leg to stand on, I think.
Yeah, and here's the issue I have with we need to wait until DNA till technology is advanced enough. Like, when is that going to happen? Because it's always advancing, and we can always say, you know what, it's going to get better. The fact that it's going to get better and stronger is never going to change. So when do you, quote unquote, pull the trigger on this? When do you step in and say, now is the time that we can test this blood? And maybe they do have ways of measuring this. Maybe they can say, we have to have so many, I don't know what's smaller than a milliliter, but small amount of blood. We can't test anything less than that. And I would have to think when they can test it, they can pull a DNA profile, and you have that profile forever. It's not like you just have it for a day. So once they can test it, I think that's going to be super helpful. And
I guess, you know, if you were in the lab, you know, I think everything that you do in the lab is important, but could you imagine the pressure on you? Like, if you do one step wrong and you ruin this sample, it's not the sample. It is 100% of what the police have. So if you screw something up, you've potentially ruined any chance that there is a justice.
Shoot, if you sneeze, if you trip, like, you can completely change the future of justice for Patti. Now, I mean, obviously the boyfriend's not named. All signs point to him being involved, if nothing else, as well as potentially the coworker. I wonder if they went to his house as well. We have no record of that, but
man, I would give that guy a polygraph test. And if it came back fishy, which I suspect it would, I would interrogate the crap out of him.
And I mean, I'm usually against this, but give the guy a deal. Hey, tell us what happened, and you're immune. You don't have to go to jail.
And we can lie to people now, right? Like, I would go in like, hey, brother, just want to give you a heads up as a common courtesy. Technology is now available. We can test this thing 5 different times. If it comes back that it's her blood and we know that you were with him that night, you and him are going away for a long time.
Yeah.
With that in mind, is there anything you'd like for me to know before we test this?
You know what? That sounds like a great idea to me. And do you generally disagree with that technique, but only because you think this guy's so guilty? Because I think that's where I'm at. It's like, we can do that this time, because he seems like a dirtbag.
I mean, look, here's the thing. I may have said in the past that I find it questionable, but I use it all the time on my kids. Guys, I have a camera hooked to this house. I can see blah, 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 blah. Tell me now before I watch this video, what am I going to see? And then usually I will get the truth. So
it works.
You know,
totally
while
works.
I may find it questionable, I also use it to my advantage. So no, go to his house, tell him this, and see what happens.
And we have yet to see a court say that it's not okay. So yeah, I completely agree. Let's get to the bottom of this. Let's get justice for Patti's family. And if boyfriend did do it, by all means, let's punish him to the fullest extent of the law. I want him off the streets. As far as we know, he hasn't committed any other violent crimes, but I feel like if you get a free $90,000 and get away with it scot-free, then you're going to keep doing some shady stuff.
And heck, I mean, at the end of the day, Jamie, we don't know who this guy is. Now you can go online and you can Google it and you can find it, but you know, is the friend still alive? Is the friend still physically, cognitively able to speak to us? So we're definitely discussing hypotheticals.
Yep. I think we need either friend or DNA to solve this. I don't see any other way, but we continue to cover cases that are solved through familial genealogy and stuff like that. So I fully believe we can solve this. It's just a matter of when and how.
Absolutely. I do think this is going to be solved, and I cannot wait to be able to discuss it over on Patreon.
Absolutely, guys. We appreciate you hanging out here with us. We also do a lot of case updates over on TikTok. We also have a little bit of fun over there, participating in some trends. Got John in on a little dancing last week, so you may want to check that out over, and it's just at True Crime Cast. That's where you can find us on all social media platforms and all of our web properties and our store and also the Patreon link.
Yep. Guys, we appreciate everything you do for us. Please leave us a rating and a review, and that helps so much more than you'll ever know.
And we'll read it live on the air.
Until next crime, this has been True Crime Cast.
You've listened to True Crime Cast, distributed by Stoveleg Media. Check out stoveleg.com to find out more about your hosts and to find other podcasts to listen to. Stoveleg Media, igniting conversation.